There are calls for President Cyril Ramaphosa to do more to assist over-indebted South Africans who are buckling under the economic pressure brought on by the COVID-19 lockdown. That crisis for many entrepreneurs has been compounded by the attacks leveled out on many businesses this week. Author and businesswoman Rita Zwane has penned an open letter to Ramaphosa where she details some solutions to the problem. For more on that, she joins us now via our video link. Zwane, thanks very much indeed for making time. It's lovely to have you on the program. In your open letter, you're actually calling on the president to allow some South Africans to have access to 50% of their pension payout, even before the age of 55. What's the thinking behind that?
Yes, thank you for having me. To be honest, I had written this letter actually last year during the times when it was very much, scary to see the pandemic and not knowing what the future holds. But as towards the end of the year, I thought, you know what, let me wait for 2021 and see how it goes. With the recent unrest, I then pulled that letter and I had to look at it again, read it and say, now is the time. Because big businesses, the reason and the decision behind that letter, some big businesses are going to fold and go. Some are going to, rebuild. What about SMMEs? What about small businesses to medium? Because these have been hardest hit, and in the sense that at the same time, the relief that we were promised to get, not many of them got that amount of money. And what is it that's left that they can pick up and be able to build their businesses? Pockets have got holes now. All the savings that small to medium businesses, any business owner who is small will tell you this. They've sold some of the assets that they think will help them to keep their businesses going. So with the current unrest, I looked at it and thought there's actually nothing left now for these businesses except one area where the government needs to look at now, because it's a lifeline that we need. Desperate times calls for desperate measures, and that space is the Provident Fund and the Pension Fund, to say that will help us to be able to rebuild our businesses as well. Number one. Number two, an ordinary person, working class, who has been going to work, coming back, even around these times, with the malls that have been looted, banned, businesses that have been destroyed, that person today did not wake up. I can just use one example to go to work. One example of what I know. I heard the president was talking about the malls that were banned and destroyed. And the ones that I know from Macomics property developers, about 7 of them malls, they were destroyed and 2 of them were banned. I know for sure that 10,000 people today or yesterday did not wake up to go to work. So those people's properties, those people's children that were going to school, they are not going to be able to pay for school fees. But if we access that 50% of pension funds, at least it's a lifeline that will help us to keep us going until this is all over. Because at some point it will be over.
Absolutely. Let's try and understand what it actually takes to try and build up a business again. You're credited for starting the very popular Busy Corner. It's near the Imbizo Shisanyama. Many people might know that. Sadly, it's also been targeted in the looting in the week gone by. What does it take, given your entrepreneurial knowledge, to build something like that up again?
Let's talk about resilience, because in my letter, I was also saying businesses, small businesses and medium are known for resilience. It takes everything that you have, not just your energy, not just your time, not just your commitment, everything that you've worked hard for, you keep putting it in that business, depending the purpose of having the business. Some small to medium are building these businesses for legacy purposes. So seeing that in front of you, like in a second or in one day, it all evaporates, everything that you've worked hard for. I will use our example since 1994, when it's the new democratic government, to say what legacy are we going to leave as this generation to the future one. So it takes, you go to the bank accounts, you take everything that you have, and you know that at the end of the day, it's not just about profits. But because if it's about profits, sometimes you'd find yourself having to give up. But that kind of resilience, that I'm building a value chain here, I'm building something that when the future generation look back and look at mothers of today, and like we do when we look at, oh, Mam Sisulu, Mam Winnie Mandela, we know they left us political freedom, but then they left us economic freedom. So it's sweat, it's tears, it's sleepless nights, it's everything. So just vanishing in front of you, it's very devastating.
I wonder whether you think we have any chance at really fixing these problems without addressing the plight of young people who you describe as being totally defeated in your letter. Are you able to hear us,
Yes,
Zwane?
yes, because, you know, I've been running a business in the township. That's why I say, you know what, for 20 years, I'm the face of township economy. Yes, I'm with you. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Go ahead.
Can you hear me? All right, good. Yes. Yes, I used that because for 20 years I've been running businesses in the township. You know, seeing young people, many of them that would come to you, go to colleges, graduate, come back, and you look forward now to see these young people, you know, being excited, building their own lives, building their futures. And you see them walking up and down the street, completely defeated, with no hope of finding work, which is why when I wrote this letter, I then thought this is what we've been looking for a very long time, because you must remember that townships, with the pandemic and the unrest, we are at the cold face of it. And now I'm thinking that how many more people are gonna walk up and down the streets like this, because then many more people are going to be without work. That means the level of unemployment is going to keep increasing. So the solution, when I was sending this solution to Mr. President to say, please look at it, I do know that we've got enough good people in South Africa, in our country, that are like determined to make sure that this country works for all of us, black or white, as one people. We've done this before during apartheid times. We can't do it again. We just need the necessary support that we can get. And if we don't get from government, then when they release our pension funds, then we'll be able to use that money to build our own businesses. But right now, we're left with nothing.
Very quickly then, real concerns now around business confidence, especially in township economies. We know that a lot of the call it establishments that have been targeted are mostly in townships themselves. As an entrepreneur with a great footprint in township economies, what's your take on how, I guess, many entrepreneurs will be viewing starting up a business in a township?
Yes, you know what, Ayanda, it's funny that you're touching that one, because I remember back then, you know, before 2000, when I started Imbizo Shisanyama, in fact, the entire sector of Shisanyama, I created it. I was knocking at the banks, and they were just not interested to come to the townships, because that time it was too risky for them. To see this happening now, you know, it just broke my heart, because we worked hard to cultivate the township economy, to bring investors into the township, to have developers like, I will use this example, like Comics property developers, that gave us an opportunity as Imbizo to get into their flagship mall at the mall of Tembisa. That is one of the malls that is still outstanding as we speak. And when I look at this, I'm saying, just when we get at a time and at a point when we are being sort of like players, not spectators in these big retail shopping centers, when they come to the township and this happens. But what I can say is that together, because many shopping centers, people were forming human shields to say, no, it cannot happen. No looting, you cannot destroy our malls, because we know what it takes to catch a taxi, go to town, come back with the lick that people are getting. So I'm saying we can still build it, rebuild it together. We can still give them confidence that, like we did before, we will do it again. All we need to do is to pray, to just make sure that God gives us strength, you know, and energy to pick up the pieces, stand together as one people, move on again.
Rita Zwane, thanks very much indeed for your take. Really appreciate your speaking to us today on Newsfeed PM. Rita Zwane is an entrepreneur who, tell you what, knows what it takes to get a business up and running, especially in townships. She's behind the Imbizo Shisanyama in Ebony Park. It's formerly known as Busy Corner. Zwane, once again, thanks very much indeed for your time.